least favorite thing, trade rumors. The Kings roster seems set. It seems like we have only one way to go is sign those RFAs and let's start the season, but it never ends. Kings seem like the number one destination. I think it was fourth overall in the odds for Patrick Kane at 5-1. What do you guys think about these rumors, and what would it take for you to maybe get Patrick Kane? Do you think it's a move that makes the Kings, a cup contender with him in the top 6? I'll start with Joe on this one. Like, what did you think when these rumors started flying out there?
I don't know. I think the odds makers are going to just throw whatever they can out there. There's a number of teams, whatever. The Kings are a team that have made a little bit of noise, but no, I don't. A couple of things. One, I don't see the fit just from a roster construction standpoint because we've talked about they've got their RFAs to sign, which they can probably do with what they have, although it could get dicey. It could, there's still 4 of them that haven't come back or haven't, inked yet. So that's tight as it is. So you're talking about having to move out probably 2 pieces at that point. And we've talked about now with the Fiala ad, you've got your top 6 set. We've already mentioned Diafalo, and where does he's probably going to be on the 3rd line. So just where does Patrick Kane go? I mean, I have to assume he's going to play in the top 6 if you get him. So is Trevor Moore out at I just don't see how it fits. I mean, and to the other point, you take a quick step back, he would have helped the Kings power play immensely. You look at his 5-on-5 numbers, though, they're very, very average, and that even me putting it nicely of late, this tail end of his career. So it's not like you're getting prime Patrick Kane in his at 5-on-5. He's an elite power play guy still, so which is something the Kings need. But I don't know. There's just no fit. It's fun. I get it. I just don't see the fit.
Do you agree with him?
Yeah, I agree with Joe, and I don't see the fit right now, at least, or in the offseason before we're talking. The thing with Kane and a lot of other guys we'll probably talk about too is the salary cap, and we've talked about this before that the Kings are right now they're kind of a cap-strapped team. I mean, like Joe mentioned, there's still 4 RFAs and Mikey Anderson, Sean Durzi, Anderson Dolan, and Gabe Vilardi that still haven't even signed new contracts yet. So we don't even know if those players are 100% going to be back. I mean, we expect them to come back, but right now there's just not a lot of room cap-wise to add a lot of pieces, especially a contract like Patrick Kane's that's coming in at $10.5 million. This is my opinion about Kane. I don't see him getting traded till the deadline. And the reason I say that is because I think Chicago, I mean, everybody knows what Chicago's doing. They're tanking it's totally blatant tanking. But you have to be able to draw at least some fans to the arena. And if you have Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews still on the roster, fans will come. I mean, they'll come and watch. They'll wear their Patrick Kane jerseys. They'll wear their Johnny Taves jerseys. And they'll come and watch their favorite players play. So there's really not a lot of reason for them to trade Kane right now because I still see them getting pretty good value for Kane at the trade deadline. I mean, he's going to be this year's Claude Giroux, and look what the Flyers got for Claude Giroux. They got a pretty good package for only 25 games of Giroux in Florida. So I mean, if they're able to net a first round pick, a high end prospect, and then maybe even eat some of that cap, I think they're looking at a pretty hefty package come trade deadline, and that's something that maybe the Kings could look toward because I think a big question will be that we'll have to maybe talk about come closer to trade deadline is where is this Kings team now in their contention / going for it? Or I mean, if they're close to on that trajectory of a 9,900 point team, do they start really going for those high-end trade deadline rental pieces? Or they really kind of just wait and hold off? And that'll be something that'll probably have to be addressed closer to February or March.
Yeah, and I think if you run into a lot of injury issues like you had with LA last year, there's just so many variables. And I think you're right. It probably does make sense from a deadline standpoint for Chicago. So, yeah, I think I think a lot would depend. Like, say, if there's an injury or situation to the Kings' top six, if maybe somebody like Trevor Moore doesn't take that, continue on what he did last year, and they're looking for that scoring winger again, maybe something like that could come into play where you're dealing with a lot less of a cap situation at that point. So.
I'm going to go devil's advocate here just because the fact that agreeing with everybody doesn't make for good radio here. And I'd say, why not? If rumor has it that Chicago is willing to eat 50%, you could see the likes of Iafallo leaving. If they want it, they just brought in Victor Arvidsson. Victor Arvidsson's making $4-something million. Maybe they move him out. If they move out Iafallo and maybe Walker or a prospect that has the cap hit of like $1 million or $1.5 million that Chicago would want with some draft picks, I mean, you can make it work. And then that way you're having it's more slots down into the third line. As good as that line was, I mean, he's not Patrick Kane, and that power play significantly improves. And then you really do have an amalgam of the top six, so where you can truly just invest in totally on chemistry during camp and roll out two powerhouse lines there. And I see Russell saying it at the deadline and I think Chicago would probably wait till then anyways, because I think there'll be more teams vying for the play of Patrick Kane because his cap hit will be less. You know what your team is and where you are in the standings at the trade deadline. You know what your scouts are looking at for the 2023 draft. Like, we all know it's supposed to be a big draft, but how big? Like, okay, is worth a half season of Kane worth maybe the 15th, 16th, or 17th pick at that point? Maybe not. Do we go the 2024? I think there's a lot more knowledge with the teams at the deadline. But if I think the Kings are easily if you look at the dumpster fire that Calgary is going through, and we'll talk about that in a second, and everybody's losing pieces here and there, the Kings could easily win the Pacific. So why not? I mean, I get it that he's a free agent and you risk it being a 1-year deal, and maybe that lowers the cost, or maybe it doesn't, and the Blackhawks are going to hold him for ransom. But the way the Blackhawks been trading, they've just been giving away players. So you should at least pick up the phone and see what it's going to cost.
Agree with that for sure. I think certainly in the summer or in the off season here, I think it's just difficult for a lot of teams to fit him, even if they are taking on half of it. But at the deadline, the King, because I think to Russ's point, the Kings are probably getting to a point now where, depending on where they are, they're going to start to be looking at these guys as buyers at the deadline rather than, just kind of standing pat. I think they're going to have to make some decisions here at some point, but certainly not right now.
They will also know more about their prospects. They'll know if Velarde's playing. They'll know if Turcotte is healthy all season. Yep. If Byfield's on pace to score 40+, which we thought would be a great season for him. And so, you could see that as a big move at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned, Randon, that Chicago's kind of shot themselves in the foot with that DeBrincat trade. I mean, they really just kind of gave him away for pennies. So, I mean, if a team's coming to look to trade for Patrick Kane, Chicago can't be asking for more than what they got for DeBrincat. I mean, I understand that DeBrincat's an RFA, and you still had to re-sign him, but I mean, there's not a lot of chances that a player gets traded to a team and they don't re-sign a long-term deal. So, I mean, especially for Kane, who's only got 1 year left on his deal, and everybody knows that they're going to trade him. I mean, you're probably not talking about that high of a package or a price to pay. So, I mean, they would have to eat some contract because the salary cap is a huge issue right now, and that's just across the league for everybody. So they would have to eat some dollars there. But yeah, I think it's something to watch is that if, let's say, the Kings defense is looking pretty good, but the forwards are still a little bit of lack of scoring and the power play isn't running well. I mean, what better guy to have on your team than Patrick Kane to run a power play? I can't envision that many.
The thing is, the Kings right now, and this is before Velarde and Anderson Dolan, they have 14 forwards under contract. Now, I know a couple of those, could be AHL bound. Maybe Rasmus Kupari starts in the AHL this year, depending on who makes the team, yada, yada. But regardless, there's 14 and soon to be 16 guys under contract that are just forwards. That's a lot. It's too many. So something's going to have to give. So to talk about adding another one to that, that's a lot of guys that are going to have to go out. A lot of guys, bodies and money.
Yeah, Richard comes in here. I see the Kings making a big move at or near the deadline, especially if the prospects down in Ontario produce and their values go up. Last on this Kane knowledge, Carter comes in. What about the signing Kane as a UFA next summer? Obviously, he's not going to be making $10 million, but he did have a good year points wise on a bottom feeder. I don't think the Kings could afford an aging Kane. I think he's still making $7-something million. I mean,
Yeah,
or $8 million.
I don't think so. Not for me. I mean, you really hope at that point, like you said, Randon, a second ago, that they're going to learn a little bit more about their prospects. Like at some point, somebody's going to have to force their way onto this team, right? Whether it's Kapari, Turcotte, Fagino, Chromiak, like somebody's going to have to force their way, and if not, maybe that's a different type of problem that the Kings have. So I'm going to say no.
Let's move things coming here. Let's get a word from our sponsors. The action never ends at DraftKings Sportsbook, especially this summer, with tons of ways to win, to bet on all your favorite sports. You can fuel your fandom and feel the heat of the season like never before. Plus, right now, DraftKings Sportsbook is giving new customers a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's right. Make your first bet up to $1,000, and if it doesn't win, you'll get another shot to cash in. You can throw down on all major action for baseball, golf, MMA, and more. Plus, with same-game parlays, spreads, money lines, over-unders, and prop bets, get your betting options feel endless. Hey, who's going to win out of any of the divisions in baseball? Who's going to win the home run streak, RBIs? Is there going to be a Triple Crown winner? You can bet on all that and more at DraftKings. Best of all, DraftKings is safe, secure, reliable. You can deposit and withdraw cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Make your first deposit and get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That is code THPN. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions may apply. See show notes for details.